Hi, Armando. It's a pleasure having you in ERP Talks.
Khaled, thank you for having me, man. Happy to be here.
I am so happy that I have you, and we have met in Atlanta. And whenever the first time I saw you, I said, "This guy is amazing. I want to have an episode with this guy because you look so smart and so active, and it's a pleasure having you."
Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words. I mean, I go back to that. We were at the Acumatica practice owner, training, and I think I was probably the most opinionated and probably the most the newest guy out there as well. So that's a little bit of my mo, I guess. Just I like to ask challenging questions, but no, it was good to meet you too, and I love what you're doing with Z Consulta as well. So definitely admiring you from afar. We've talked a little bit about, commercial strategy and all these other
Yeah,
things that it's just good to talk shop with a peer. And so I'm just
yeah.
happy to be here and just, talk with you.
Thank you so much. So, Armando, my first typical question in ERP Talks is to tell us more about your career journey and how you get involved into the ERP industry.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? I don't think anybody chooses to go into the ERP industry.
Yeah.
It chooses you, right? So it actually started very early in my career. So I'm actually a mechanical engineer. I went to school for engineering at the University of Alabama. I decided to come back to Houston, where I grew up, and start a career in oil and gas, which is very typical for that career. And obviously, it was home. I worked for a very large pipe manufacturer, a global pipe manufacturer. I was in a rotational leadership program, essentially, where you spend a year in different aspects of the business. And I ended up finding myself in two places. One was commercial planning for purchasing, and then I was actually a purchasing coordinator. And in both of those instances, I worked with JD Rush and I worked with SAP, and I started kind of getting a little bit into the business side of operations, right? Because we were direct inputs to the operations in terms of buying raw material, raw steel. Still was really just looking into what I wanted to do long term. And I thought that I wanted to be a little bit of a hybrid commercial and technical person. So I ended up pivoting to technical sales, where I was actually going out to client sites, learning about, at the time where oil and gas, horizontal drilling was kind of the new thing, and selling solutions to drilling engineers all over the country. I was going to Oklahoma, Midland, Pennsylvania, and even in some cases out South America. Did that for a while. I really, that's where I kind of learned my chops and in terms of selling and being able to do that. Then I had an opportunity to join ExxonMobil as a experience hire, which is a pretty atypical thing. They usually hire from university to join basically their global procurement organization as in their drilling materials, essentially buying what I was selling before, which was great at that time. And so I made a career there. I spent about 5 years there. Obviously, some ERP experience there where we were using SAP. I'll be lying if I told you that I didn't hate SAP. I probably avoided it as much as I could. I try
Oh,
to
yeah.
focus on, category management, on contract negotiations, and anything that had to do with touching the system. I just, didn't want to touch. But inevitably, I had an opportunity to help with primarily operations setups with different affiliates that we had, and obviously interacted with a ton of the folks that interacted with the system. So again, ERP was never in my radar. And it wasn't until you fast forward about 5 years into my career at ExxonMobil, I decided to get a master's in business administration here in Houston at Rice University. And then I started, looking at where to go next with my career. And so I joined Deloitte Consulting as an M&A manager. I was there for 2 years. And after that, I got recruited through iTech's parent company, Evergreen Services Group, to join their program that essentially places folks like myself with a diverse set of skill sets to be part of the leadership team in one of their operating companies. And that operating company, spoiler alert, was iTech. And the reason it was a good fit was because a lot of our clients are clients that I'm very familiar in their industry, right? Distribution, manufacturing. I've used ERP before, and there's a lot of synergies in that regard. And then on top of that, we're a managed service provider in the local Orlando area, where I had, spent a good time of my time with Evergreen learning about that business, which is also a very interesting business. So long story short, it kind of happened by luck that I got into this space. But ever since I've joined it, I've really grown fascinated by not just the challenges, but also the opportunities that these solutions unlock. So it's been really rewarding so far.
Oh my God. You know that I worked also in the oil and gas industry
No
at the
way.
beginning of my Yeah, I was an electrical engineer.
Okay.
I was
So there you go.
working, yeah, with the ESP, the electrical submersible pumps
Okay.
for Shell. I don't know if you know.
Of
And
course. Yeah.
I worked 4 years in the field and it was amazing. And we have been using also SAP.
Yeah.
And here is how I get involved. I was using SAP, and one day there was a guy coming to do some like work on SAP, and I asked him because all the time he's clean. He's so clean. And my coverall is so dirty because we go to the wells and do the maintenance. And I ask him, hey man, what do you do?
Yeah.
I never saw you have any like oil on your coverall. So he told me I'm working as an SAP consultant. And from here I started like
So you figured out the way to not get your coveralls dirty. It's just
yeah,
to
yeah.
to start selling
Exactly.
ERP. All right. Listen, everybody gets there a different way. That's an awesome story. But yeah, I mean, like you, I was out on platforms. I was out on, especially a lot of land stuff. And it's a fascinating industry. And it's one that it's funny that we ended up where we are because I'm sure you saw this, but it's an industry that is very risk averse and very technology backwards,
Yeah.
right? And it's actually funny that you mentioned that because there's a lot of things that we utilize, even that Acumatica could do. That I say, man, Exxon could use that, but I don't know that they would ever take a leap of faith on it. So it's a very interesting industry for people that are innovative. I think for me, that was a little bit of my frustration is that I'm very growth oriented and I'm more about why not than telling me no. And I felt constantly that being in the industry, while I learned a ton and I learned a lot of structure and how to do things, there were times where I just felt like, man, if we just tried a little bit harder to do
Yeah.
things a little bit differently, right?
Yeah.
But it's just yeah, it's just one of those things that you know the industry well, and they run the world for whatever for better or for worse, and then and they do it well, but they are very very risk averse, and that's not something that I wanted to hitch my wagon to when I was at that age.
Yeah. So do you think the MBA is a must for like CEOs in the ERP industry?
CEOs in the ERP? No, I don't. I think that the ERP industry, my MBA doesn't make me a better CEO. All that it gave me was an avenue to diversify my skill sets and to understand business a little bit deeper. But I think that, to be an effective CEO, you have to lead from the heart and you have to lead with your mind and you
Yeah.
have to listen and you have to do the best that you can with the information that you have. Admittedly, because I don't have implementation experience in Acumatica and I don't have, years of experience in mid-market ERPs or cloud or whatever, I have to rely on my experts to be able to educate me on how to make better decisions. And that's what I think any education gives you, whether it's engineering, whether it's an MBA, it gives you a framework to which you can then utilize your common sense to make decisions. And some people are built for those decisions, or some people just want to be very technical and do that. And I think that it's a credential that doesn't check a box, but it certainly makes you grow as an individual potentially. But it's not for everyone. It's
Okay.
not for every walks of life. So, as any good MBA student would tell you, is it depends, and that's couldn't be more true about an MBA question. I get that question a lot all the time from people who are like, "Hey, should I go spend six figures on this and not have an income for 2 years?" The answer is not always yes, right? It's a very individualized answer.
Yeah. So iTech Support. Can you tell us more about iTech Support,
Sure.
the company,
So
and also the school thing in the company?
yeah, it's super interesting, right? So iTech has been around since 1999, so it's or little over
Oh
25 years
wow.
of experience. We were one of the first MSPs really in the market. That has evolved quite a bit, obviously, as we move to more remote and more cloud, but just an IT provider. And it was founded in the Florida area. In 2015, we implemented or we kicked off an Acumatica practice. Our two founders that were with the business prior to me joining decided to enter the ERP space. Coming from Sage, they actually decided to go into
Okay.
Acumatica and start a practice from scratch. utilizing the iTech kind of brand that we was already well established in Orlando, but trying to grow Acumatica at a very early on. And since then, we've served over 500 customers. We're one of the top rated IT MSPs in
Oh,
Orlando,
wow.
and we've built a really good reputation in Acumatica. Although we're not the biggest company or ERP implementer, we certainly feel very good about our ability to implement the software with really key values that are founded upon the success of our clients. Really, at the end of the day, we see ourselves as a reflection of their success and our ability to provide a solution for them for their business. And that's what I think has been kind of the secret sauce. You mentioned a little bit of the schools, so we have a very interesting value prop with a lot of schools in the area. So one of our founder, Dan, he was very passionate about education. He actually was an accounting professor for a while he was the CEO of iTech. And he ended up getting a lot of clients in schools, private schools that needed IT help. And for whatever reason, they built credibility with him. And around 3 or 4 years ago, one of our former clients joined iTech to start an educational technology division, or EdTech, where we focus entirely on IT solutions for our schools that are related to not just the support that we bring on deploying Google and Chromebooks and Promethean boards, but also staffing former teachers that can teach the actual teachers how to use technology in their classroom. So think of strategies on how to leverage AI in their lesson plans, or how do you come up with controls or standard operating procedures for ChatGPT with the students, right? What are the acceptable
Okay.
use cases? Strategic planning for their infrastructure, right? Are they moving from on-prem to the cloud? Are they using Chromebooks? Are they using Microsoft? So not ERP related at all, but it's been a very interesting part of our business that I actually think could at some point open up ERP opportunities. But we've got an amazing staff of 4 teachers that used to teach and are just really passionate about what they do, and it really shows.
Awesome, awesome. So, as a CEO for an ERP company, in your opinion, what is the biggest challenges that you face in the ERP arena? Is it like more technical, like in the implementation, or
Yeah.
after the implementation, or the effort it takes before like closing a deal, like the sales and marketing stuff?
Yeah. I think it's all of the above. I think there are challenges across the entire life cycle of an ERP. I sometimes joke to people that people think of an ERP like a four-letter word. Pick your favorite four-letter word, right? And some of that comes from bad experiences, like what I had when I told you I avoided SAP like the plague when I was at ExxonMobil because it just seemed cumbersome. It seems like this clunky system. But I think in general, where we're at today in the market, if we talk about lead generation, for example, there's a lot of competition. There's also a lot of information, and it's really hard to find people where they're at today. And actually, you see this when in your marketing efforts that to find somebody that is ready to implement an ARP, that has the budget, that has the staff, particularly in mid market and small businesses, it's a really tough thing to do, especially when you have so much competition. So trying to find those people is really hard.
Yeah.
Convincing them that you're good is also very hard. And then keeping them happy throughout a process that sometimes they feel like they're either forced to do or they didn't really understand what it would take to be successful in implementing an ERP can be challenging. So, for us, I think lead generation is always top of mind. We haven't cracked the code. I haven't spoken to someone that has told me, yeah, I know exactly how to
Yeah.
generate leads. But I will say that what I'm finding more and more is that meeting customers where they're at by speaking their language and understanding their business first, and then the software second, by learning verticals and micro verticals really, really well. So you can speak to them in their terms has been advantageous. And I think that'll translate well to marketing efforts. But, we're still figuring out what micro verticals we want to go after. We know where we have some expertise, but we also want to make sure that we're going at them in a methodical and thoughtful way.
Yeah, I agree with you 200%. Not 100%. And this is basically because I met like many ERP CEOs, and all of them have the same issue with the lead generation and the marketing,
Mhm.
especially now. I don't know why, but it's getting harder to like find the like a prospect that, and you mentioned something so important, that understand what we are delivering to them. Some people don't, even if the like the decision makers understand what they are buying from us, but the people in the operation, like in the sales, in the purchasing, in the warehouse, they don't understand the value that we are giving to them, so they start resisting and resisting, and make it harder for us to implement the solution. But uh, I agree with you 100% on that.
Well, it goes
So
back to human nature, right? Humans
yeah,
don't like change.
exactly.
There are so many times where it's really funny. I actually I was with one of our sales folks, and we were meeting with a client, and there's always that one person in the room that doesn't want to be there,
I know him.
forced to be there, and it was so funny that over time you just saw the difference in her face, right? Where she's like, "Oh, okay, now I see things." But people's time and is so limited. There's so much information out there that you really have to make a really impactful value proposition. But the only way to do that is to uncover, okay, what matters to you, right? It's not always price. It's not functionality. Because right now, if you really look at all the big ERPs, they all pretty much can do the same. Maybe there's some minor changes here and there, but
Yeah,
what is it that is really going to get you over the edge? Is it are we building enough trust with you? And I think what I've found is that, let me meet you where you're at. What are your pain points? And let me make sure that I can either tell you I can know how to solve them, or we've solved them before, or we're going to solve them together because we have the track record of doing that. And that's a hard thing to do in 5 minutes, in a demo, in a discovery, right? I don't know if you know this, but kind of moving on to the next part. Let's say you do get a lead. How painful is the sales process for a software? It's excruciating. It's You
yeah,
got to do a band qualification, and then a discovery, and then demos, and then more demos, and then you go back, and then you finally talk about price, and then by then everybody's exhausted and they just want to move on, right? I think we need to do a better job of trying to make that experience better for both the VARs and the prospects. Make the buying experience better. Now, we'll never be Amazon, right? Never be like salesless, right? But how can we provide them with the resources ahead of time that they can watch on their time, that answers their questions, that they could say, hey, I'm looking for this solution. Here's a 5 minute video. It's not even 5 minutes. Here's a 20-second snippet of that. I think we could do a better job as an ecosystem and as providers of doing that. I don't know what you see.
yeah. So yeah, I know it's so hard. The sales process takes a lot of time, and most of people say like 3 to 6 months if
Mm-hmm.
you are like lucky. And I know it's not easy, but I believe that we have a conversation over the phone, and I discussed with you like some idea about, if you remember the subscription thing. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
now about the pricing because we are
Mm-hmm.
talking sales. About the subscription, like let's say I will do this with the customer in a subscription based. I'm talking about the implementation, not the
Yep.
licensing. And you mentioned that time that you don't love this idea. And I believe that you don't like it because also the commitment. So I'm telling you that because I saw one of the partners uh, is doing like a free implementation offer. And I was thinking, even if they have the lead and the lead signed with them, do those people will commit and do the implementation? Because sometimes the lead already are paying the money, but they are not committing with us. Like there is no commitment, even if they are paying money. How
Right.
can you like, so what do you think about those ideas, the free implementation, the subscription based, all that stuff?
I mean, nothing is really free, right? Some things are free. They're going to get some. I mean, at the end of the day, some way or another, I'm sure they're recouping that. But I think it dilutes the value and the urgency when you say, "Hey, let me spread that." We do phased implementations where we'll say, "Hey, let me get you in the system. Let me get the CRM up because your sales are really important right now." And then we can modularly, if that's even a word, start adding functionality and then engaging with your different team. But when you start kind of diluting the value, or giving out free stuff, it takes the urgency away. So that's one con.
Mm,
One
yeah.
pro could be that yes, you close the deal, but nobody needs no. It's not like we can just turn on the ERP. We need to implement it. So the more you delay the implementation and go live, the less you're likely to get that renewal. And as you know, especially in Acumatica, where it's yearly licenses, the renewal is probably more important than the initial subscription because if you don't get someone live, you've run a lot of risks. Even people refusing to pay because they don't see the value. So on the second piece on subscription, I do believe managed services has a role to play where you have a constant support plan, where you have constant, the ability to bring value to their team. It's a difficult thing to scope because the scope of our clients is so diverse that we haven't really figured out the right formula. And for our business, it's very healthy. Recurring revenue allows me
Yeah.
to scale much easier, allows me to hire on a more predictable basis, and it also gives the clients a more predictable cost where, if we are right now we're purely time and materials, they've got a lot of variability, right? So I'm not sure that I'm answering your question, but I would say that I'm not anti anything. I'm pro value. I
Yeah.
want to find that whatever it is that I'm trying to do, I'm trying to get them to use the system as quickly as I can so they can see value. I'm trying to get a commercial strategy for them that works for them, and that's going to get them in the system, but it's not going to delude their ability to give me the time of day. Because many times, this in our industry, we're dealing with smaller mid-market companies that they don't have full dedicated teams to do an ERP implementation like Shell and Exxon did, right? They had full staff dedicated to that, doing in the background while people did their day jobs. Here, we're asking people to do their day jobs, give us the time of day, and do something that is really hard. And that can be a very difficult value proposition for the people that are actually moving the knobs here. Commercial or not, you have to find a way to get people excited about this. And it's mostly saying, hey, I've got a great solution. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to cut down your cycle time so you can focus on other things. Kind of similar to what, the promise of AI is, right? Like, why do we use technology? We use technology because it's supposed to make our lives easier.
Yeah.
Let's make that happen from beginning to end. And that's something that I think technology in general struggles with, right? Unless it's something.
This is a great answer, and I believe that everything have like pros and cons. So and this is life. So let's move to the next question, and let's say that I'm a potential customer. Why should I choose iTech support? What is like the value added proposition that
Yeah.
sets you apart from other VARs?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that sets us apart is that we're still a small business that operates like a boutique business that but can get really deep and really specialized. And that's technical. But what it all comes down to is that the formula for success for us has been that if our clients are successful, we are successful. From
Wow.
from everybody at the support level all the way to myself, we are always looking for how can we make their operations 1% better every day, and conversely try to do that ourselves. How can we be better every single day? We're a constantly evolving product. From day one, our DNA has been, even when in 1999, that's still the case all across our business, regardless of ERP or MSP. Our investment in our client success has translated into us being a trusted partner and advisor and not a vendor. And when you shift that mindset of they're the ones to call you because they trust you and they have a problem, they're either going to be the ones that are also going to refer you to their friends. And I think that's the secret sauce to any business. It's about building trust, seeing them where they're at, and being fair, honest, and upfront. I think those are some of the things from a business perspective that differentiates us. Now, our team is second to none, and I really believe that. We have the unique ability to do a lot of different additions, with the exception of construction in Acumatica. We can do pretty much everything else. We've done really complex integration, or that skill set has really been building up for a really long time. The next challenge of that is how do we translate that over to the next generation of consultants, and we do it in a proper way. So we've got a really experienced team that knows business and software, which enables us to have that conversation. We're not just talking about, hey, have you seen this module and this button and this? It's like, hey, I'm going to talk you through how you're going to receive your raw material for this fencing company, and you're going to translate that to the system to a sales order to a finished product because we know your business inside and out. So we really try to learn and understand your business before we just jump into the software and into the solution. And I think sometimes when you see people that get really excited about one thing or the other, you have to find a balance into that. And I think we've done a decent job of doing that.
So learning the business is vital. Is so important. I really like that one. So there is a question come to my mind now. So is that also makes you sometimes like refuse to do an implementation for some prospects? Like you say, hey guys, we are not like the best fit for you, or your business don't need our like help or our solution. Is
You
that
have to.
happen?
You have to be that way because ultimately, round peg, square hole, right? You can't get caught up in this in just the sale, and we can sometimes, right? We're under a lot of pressure to from Acumatica or from our own goals to sell as much as we can, but you have to be willing to walk away from a prospect or be willing to say, hey, listen, Acumatica might not be the best option. Have you looked at you know another
Okay.
solution? And I think that goes back to how you build trust and to be upfront and honest to say, hey, look, Acumatica might not do everything right now, but maybe that's something we can work on you in the future, or it's in the pipeline with development. You do have to do that. I think you have to try to put themselves in yourself in their shoes. What would you want to know that if you were them, right? And
Hmm.
you're seen as an expert. And I think that adds a lot of one credibility, but um, also value in the sense that you're willing to walk away from something that isn't going to be mutually beneficial. Because again, if they're not successful in this ERP, then we're not either. Even if we get the revenue for 12 months, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in a
Yeah.
client that's going to churn. They're not interested in an ERP they're going to waste money on and then have a bad experience and then potentially not put an ERP in place when they really need it for 3 years because they're scared. I'm doing them a disservice. They're doing ourselves a disservice. It's probably best if we just walk away. Now, the good thing is, I think Acumatica is pretty robust, and there's not a ton of things that it can't do. But if we see certain behaviors, like we don't believe it's going to get adopted by the client where it needs to be adopted to get the full value of it, or they aren't serious about a timeline, or really the software isn't going to work for them, I think it's in our best interest to walk away. And we try to do that, and we try to uncover that through conversations, right? and
Yeah.
through and through discovery. And it's also fit, right? Sometimes cultural fit's important, right? Our consultants are going to be hopefully an extension of their team for a very long time. Do we mesh well with them culturally, and do their values align with ours? I think those are also very important things that sometimes get missed.
This is also a great answer, Armand. I like it so
Thanks, man.
much. So let's say I signed with you the contract and I will work with you guys. What is the methodology that iTech support like have, and what should I expect once we sign the contract and we will start the implementation?
Yeah, so what we do is we assign a project team. So it's led by our managing director who oversees all of our implementations from a operations perspective. And then you'll get a project manager, dedicated project manager, and then we have a support staff associated with it. So we kind of establish the team. We do pretty typical, we do a kickoff call and we ensure we get everybody aligned. We want to make sure at this point in time the client also understands their responsibilities in
Perfect.
ensuring that they have a dedicated project manager, that they have a dedicated team, that we have a cadence, because all those things are going to set you up. That structure is going to set you up for success. One of the things that I think differentiates us a bit, and it could be a controversial topic depending on who you talk to, it's implementation methodology. We use what we like to call a flexible agile implementation methodology, where we leverage some of the structure of a typical waterfall, but we try to do things on an individual modular level. So for example, in an agile approach, we would essentially try to implement CRM independently from financials so that neither of them bottleneck each other. And we utilize agile principles, but we're not scrum masters, or we're not necessarily following that to the T, but we use that to our advantage to get, at the end of the day, what we want is hands-on keys of the user as quickly as possible. So we try to get you in the system as quickly as we can in the week after kickoff, if possible. Send you assignments, send you some homework, get you to watch some videos, and then we're going to try it. we're going to put it some dummy data if we don't have data migrated all the way, and we're going to work through a fake purchase order, right? And you start getting believers that way. You start getting folks that are starting to understand, oh, okay, I see what this thing can do, and I see how easy it is to utilize it. And then obviously we want to have a successful implementation. We've been very fortunate that over the past, since 2015 or 9 years, we've implemented over 165 companies,
Wow.
all successfully. So, and that's for things that we can control, right? Sometimes clients might go out of business, or they might some things may happen, but those that have followed our process have been successfully implemented in Acumatica, and fortunately, for the most part, again, for things that we outside of the things that we can't control, we've kept them as Acumatica clients and grown with them, which has been really great.
Awesome. So let's say, and this is also something comes to my head now. Let's say and this has happened sometimes. The decision makers like didn't get involved in the project at the beginning, but by the
Mm-hmm.
end of the project, they start showing up and say, "Hey, I don't like that. We need that." How you handle them, or how you handle this situation?
You are. It's almost like you were just in my last meeting. It's I've seen this happen more with larger companies where someone in the decision maker is delegating to someone, and that's perfectly acceptable, but it's really hard for that person to please everyone, right? Because then you've got, let's say it's a project manager or an IT director or something. Well, he's got, or he or she knows what he wants to see, but then the purchasing person comes along and says, hey, well, they need to show me how the PO system works. And even though we know that Acumatica's PO, processing and invoicing is good, now you got to go back to the drawing board. So then you let's assume you
Yeah,
uncover that. Then you got the executives that come in at the end and start just picking stuff apart. Is there a perfect way to avoid it? Usually what you want to do is you want to get in front of the decision makers as quickly as possible. That may not always happen. I haven't cracked the code for that outside of asking a lot of pointed questions at what is your ERP decision framework? What do you need in order to make the decision? What can you give me some? How are you weighing this? And this is mostly to the delegated party, and then they kind of start telling you, oh, well, my management really wants to see this, and this, and this and that. So you really gotta probe that as much as possible. And I'll say, like, push for meetings with them without any delay to say, hey, look, we got to meet with your decision makers because we don't want to waste any more of your time than ours. But, it's easier said than done. Every situation is different. I'm sure you've seen it, right? I'm sure you've seen where you get to the end and you're like, yes, I'm going to win this. And then they call you on a Friday and they're like, we just went with the other guys. And I was like, well, you told me we were great. What happened? Like, well, our CFO used to use Khaled ERP,
yeah.
and he's you guys are awesome, but you guys are number two. That's happened to me, and it's
Mm,
devastating because you spend so much time, you think you've got it. I remember, it's 3 months ago. I was out on a Friday afternoon having a drink with my wife. I was like, yeah, I think we're gonna get this one. I was really excited for it, and my salesperson calls me and goes, "Hey, they went with
oh
the other
my
guys,"
god.
and it was just like, I don't understand. So call this guy on Monday or Tuesday. They're like, "Yeah, you guys were great, but you guys were actually competitive, but the decision was out of my hands." And I was like, "Man, I know they didn't make the best decision," and I told him so, and he was like, "Oh, we appreciate it, but we just went with what we were familiar with." So some of that stuff is just human nature, right? You try to avoid it as best you can, but there's always these horror stories of this crazy life that we picked, which is
Yeah,
ERP sales, which
yeah.
is it's let me spoiler alert for the people that are watching, it's not for the weak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100% agree with you on that. So, can you share with us like a successful story that iTech Support
Mhm.
have for one of your clients working with Acumatica?
Yeah. So we actually are fortunate. We've got three customer success stories that are published on the Acumatica website. One of them is in distribution called Eagle Fence. The other one's QPAC, who's a manufacturer, and the other one's Bocateri, who's a retailer. So we're fortunate that we're covering a large gambit there. It kind of shows the depth of our practice. But I really like QPAC because they're a really great story of what a great customer can look like when they embrace the change in the software. And this goes back to like a little bit of the culture piece. Their innate culture really bodes well with someone that's into technology. And so those are really fun clients to be around because every time you talk to them, they want something else. And you're like, yes, I can help you with that. And they get really excited. So that's kind of the fun side of it. But so QPAC is based out of Florida. They're a really fast growing manufacturer of HVAC components. So what it is their HVAC components that essentially makes existing systems or their own systems a little more efficient. They looked at several solutions. They were looking at Dynamics and NetSuite, kind of the typical players. And they really wanted something that was flexible, that allowed for customization or modularity out of the box for a lot of their unique processes in their manufacturing. So, what really differentiated Acumatica was open API, unlimited user pricing, some of the typical things that our Acumatica do really well in. But I think where we were able to add some value is that we transitioned them really smoothly into the system over the next 2 years where spreadsheets are now a thing of the past, where their existing systems essentially are seamlessly operating within Acumatica and talking to each other, providing them really just visibility into their business that has allowed them to scale really aggressively and really allowed them to accomplish their goals, which is just music to our ears, right? Because again, it goes back to they're successful, we're successful, right? And what that's turned into us is that every time we have even Acumatica asks us, can we get QPAC to talk to this prospect who's talking to another bar? And we're like, well, I guess so. But they've just become a huge advocate. They were at
Yeah.
Summit last year talking to us about, hey, we want to talk to you guys more about this and know about that. And it's just they're a fun client because they are really growth oriented and have a growth mindset that values technology. And that's you can't beat that, right? Those I wish we could have more of those, and all of
Yeah.
our clients are great, but ultimately sometimes what happens is you get in the system, you set it and forget it, right? But these guys and gals are always looking of how they can improve their operations, and we've become a big part of that, and I think that makes me really proud of the team, and of course of being a partner with them.
Good for you and good for them. And as you mentioned, if they are successful, we are successful. I like this mindset, Armando. I really appreciate that because uh, it's about the quality. Sometimes people, as you mentioned, are looking for hitting the targets and doing more sales. But I believe that when you look from the point of view of the quality thing that you want to deliver a quality, you will definitely have those happy clients who will then you can use them for doing more sales, even if it is not for iTech but for Acumatica.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's awesome.
the
The
you
word
know
of mouth.
the best salespeople are sometimes your own clients, right? They really and
Oh my god.
and that's really where you get a lot of your, because think about it, right? It's social proofing, and it's also technically if they have peers that are in similar industries with similar pain points, they'll say, hey, I've got a solution for you. I mean, I've got a great partner. That's what great looks like. Going back to a little bit what we're talking about is that I think all of us in our ecosystems have their own stories in their own right. Scream it from the rooftops, right? We gotta say, hey, look how great we are. Look how awesome Acumatica is, or look how. But it's how do we capture eyes and ears when they're looking, and we really hit the nerve of like, oh wow, that I gotta call these people. All right,
Yeah.
they're the guys and the gals I've been looking for. That's such a difficult thing when innately eyes and ears are so distracted, and there's just so much content out there and so much information out there that's what we're competing against, right? We're not competing against, there's plenty of people looking and needing an ERP. It's just how do you find them at the right time and at the right spaces? It's a puzzle that I continue to. You've had a
Yeah.
lot of people in your podcast talking about marketing and lead generation, and they're great, but and they all have their own strategies, but there's a million ways to do this.
Yeah.
And I just one day I'll crack the code and we'll retire and sip mai tais together on somewhere.
Yeah, sometimes I think like if someone can sell ERP, they can sell anything.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's why it's not for the weak, right? If someone can say, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
Because it's such a sticky kind of thing that people don't, they want to avoid it. But what we want to do is we want to turn skepticals into believers, and hope that our solutions, whatever they are, enables their success and makes their life easier. If I can reduce someone's time to create a report by 20 minutes times 4 days a week, times 50 hours of the week or 48 hours of the week of the year rather, then you've got a really good value prop for that person.
Yeah,
Now that person can be
exactly. Yeah,
utilized to do something else. And so how do you translate that to someone, right?
yeah.
It's difficult to do for sure. It's difficult to quantify too.
Yeah. So, moving to our next question, and this is for the people who are considering joining iTech support. Why should they take the step? What makes it an attractive and healthy environment to work?
Yeah, hugely important. So we can't make our clients successful if we aren't taking care of ourselves. We I like to think, and I think I feel pretty confident that this is true because one of our newer employees just told me that she felt like this is just like a family environment. We genuinely care about each other. We challenge each other where respectfully. We are a people first business. We believe that that people is not just internal and external; it's everybody. And when you come at it in that mindset, that just like a customer isn't successful if they're not successful, I'm not successful. If my employees aren't successful, then iTech isn't successful, right?
Yeah.
So we try to intentionally build a culture that is around how can we have a growth mindset? How can we work hard but also take care of each other? And I think that from a career perspective, I think we're a growing VAR that's really not too small, not too big. Where if you were to come to us and say, "I've got an idea," you can ping me on Teams and we can talk about it. You're essentially joining uh, a 25 or a 9-year old startup where you can truly make a difference, where you can truly learn about this crazy environment and grow together with the company. Another thing that I think is important to note is that we're intentionally trying to grow our practice from within, meaning that we just recently started, we hired someone from the Acumatica College program to come in and join our technical consultant ranks, which is essentially our entry level ranks. And we're trying to build a pipeline of talent that we can teach how we want to do things, right? And I think that's going to be uniquely important in our ecosystem because recruiting good talent, experience or not, is really difficult in this space. And so that's something that we're trying to build a career path for folks where, hey, you may start at the help desk, but you could go into pre-sales, or you could go into development, or you could go into commercial sales all on your own, right? And it's just providing those avenues and opportunities for people to continuously grow. So it's an exciting time. I really enjoy the people that we have are just fantastic. They all just care deeply about doing the right thing for the client. They have a sense of urgency, really customer mindset that is just natural within the company. We care deeply about ensuring that our customers are happy, and I think that's a good environment to be in.
Okay, so if someone like did the learning stuff on Acumatica University and they finish all the courses, can they apply for like an opportunity and on iTech? Like they can
Yeah,
go on a
good question. So I think that there is, and this kind of goes back to if I had to give someone advice about what really matters, and maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a little bit of a flavor of that, is that I think that real world experience is much more valuable than any of the Acumatica courses you can take online because
okay.
it's hard to correlate the two, right? If you're talking about someone a revenue recognition and GL accounts and all this, and they never ran a business before, if they've never been in a shop floor, or they've never been at a distributor, or they never worn coveralls in an oil and gas rig, they don't understand why that's important.
Yeah.
What I would encourage people to understand too is that yes, you're not just checking, just like an education. Like you asked me about the MBA before, you're not just checking a box and saying, okay, I can go, you're going to be able to solve one of my clients' problems. You're going to have to understand a little bit of the business aspect to it. So what I think is difficult sometimes is that these certifications show value and show that, oh, okay, I can do this, but in reality you might not be able to understand what the client is saying because you may not know their business, or you may not even know their acronyms, or you might not even know accounting or supply chain or operations. So I think real world experience is something that we're trying to build. So what we say is like, look, we want to test your aptitude, we want to test your your customer service skills, your innate ability to learn. Let's bring you in. You know a little bit of the system. Now let's tie that back to you learning our clients by serving the help desk. Start taking some tickets, start resolving some stuff with some help, and then you start kind of learning by doing. A lot of our I guess junior consultants or mid-career consultants actually came from being Acumatica users that they used to
Wow.
be within the Acumatica ecospace. One of our client success manager, she came from the space, and she said, "I love Acumatica. I want to join it." And so that's why she joined it. Another one of our more newer folks, he used to be a client of ours, and he needed to relocate to the Orlando area. Couldn't work remote, so we got our client's blessing and we brought him on, and now he's a technical consultant and he's doing extremely well. So that shows that a little bit is that prowess of, yes, I know the system, I can learn it, great, but now can you apply it? Right? And that's where I think makes someone go from an entry level to a actual consultant that can implement the system, because as you know, implementations are very difficult.
I 100% agree with you on that. Learning the business is more important than learning the system, and learning, because everyone can learn and can know how to do the steps on the system, how to do a purchase order, how to do like an invoice and print it, but you need to know the business and learn the business so you can understand what are your customer thinking or what they need from you. So yeah, 100% agree with you on that. So, if you will give your fellow CEOs an advice of what you have learned throughout your life and career, everything, what it will be?
Well, I think that when we talk about what leadership means, right? I think often we forget that it's a burden that we carry, and we're constantly trying our best to make the best decisions that we can. And I think what I'm trying to go with that is that there are times where you're going to be wrong. There are times where you're going to be right, but things didn't go your way. And the important thing is just to never make the same mistake twice if you can avoid it.
Oh, wow.
And if you can do that, then you're getting better every time. And those repetitions will allow you to be a better version of yourself and a better version of your leadership, and be better for your team. The burden that I carry is I have 50 plus families that rely on iTech to be successful, and then the ones that I hopefully can bring on to continue to scale this. So every decision that I try to make it with my brain, my heart, and my experience to the best of my abilities. But I ultimately own that decision, and I carry that burden with me every day. And they could be small decisions like hiring this brand new marketing firm that promises me the world, all the way to, a simple decision about what we should do in terms of office renovations. All of those have an impact, right? So what I try to do is I try to be as methodical as I can with my decisions, but I also try to be decisive and say, I own this decision. I am going to own the outcome of that decision. And if it doesn't work, that's okay, because nothing is ever perfect, and perfection is the enemy of progress. And I think that at times, especially new leaders like me, I mean, I'm still young in my career, we're afraid of failure. And I am afraid of failure. I don't want to fail, but I have to get comfortable with being able to learn from my mistakes and be a better individual every single day.
Wow, this is awesome, Armando. So, my last question for you is it might sound a cliche, but if you have a time machine and you can go back in time, what is the one advice that you will give to your younger self?
You didn't write this question down ahead of
Yeah.
time, so uh, not that I didn't have any time to prepare for the other ones, but I'm gonna
It's a
get a little.
surprise.
It's a surprise. I'm gonna get a little philosophical. So a little bit of my background. So it is a very unlikely journey for me to be here in this position speaking with you. My when I was 3 months old, my mom widowed without a college degree, and I ended up where I'm at today. Don't need to go into the whole history, but I I wouldn't have ever dreamt of the position that I'm in now, given those circumstances. And so I think that I would tell myself, my younger self, to never doubt your drive and your ability to make a difference, and try to make a place better than it was before you left it, but enjoy the journey more. I've always been really about the destination. And not that this is the destination, but I've always been wanting more and more. And like this ambition that I have is founded on I have such a unique opportunity that I just feel lucky to be in. I can't let it waste. That sometimes I get caught up in not celebrating or the moment or celebrating the small wins. It's just always been my nature that I even if you praise me, for example, like here, like you say, hey, that's really wise or whatever. I have really high standards of myself, and sometimes I feel like I should take a step back and enjoy the journey more rather than the destination. But yeah, I've just been very fortunate to have this opportunity to try to be the best version of myself for others, and that's what I strive to be every day.
Oh my God, Armando, I like this so much. Yeah,
Thanks,
yeah,
man. I
yeah, yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I really like it now and here. So enjoy the moment now and here. Don't think about the destination. Enjoy the journey. I really like that so much. And this is a good advice for me because now I'm always looking for the destination. And
Hmm.
the journey is so fantastic, but I'm not enjoying the journey because I am looking about I have like all the time this fear from failure. But as you mentioned, if there is no failure, there is no progress. So I really like that so much, Armando. It comes in the perfect time for me. Yeah.
I'm glad. I won't charge you my normal therapy fee. I need it. But no, I'm preaching to the I am guilty of not always having that mindset, and I constantly have to remind myself that it is lonely to be in these positions, but you have to be able to take care of yourself. You have to be able to understand, to breathe a little bit, to not get stressed out, because ultimately you've got a lot of people relying on you, and most importantly, your family, right? You got to take care of yourself. But yeah, just if you can just be a little bit better every day. We're not going to be perfect. I'm sure there's things that my team disagrees with, and I know
Yeah.
that there are things that I should have done better in the past, last year, but I'll never make those mistakes again, or at least learn from those mistakes, and that's really what it's all about. And so I'm glad I was able to help you with that, and
Yeah.
I sincerely, anytime you ever need to just chat and hey, run something by me, or that's also what we need, is just a pure community of people that know what you're going through and can give you perspective. So you always have that. You have my number, so you know how to
Yeah,
reach me.
thank you so much for that, Armando. And thank you for your time today. I know you are super busy, but thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it. And I know that iTech Support are lucky. Those guys are lucky because they have you. And I'm so lucky that I have your phone number.
I'm lucky I have yours. I told you this. I want to learn from you too. I mean, that there is so
Thank you
much.
so
What's
much.
awesome about our community in Acumatica, it's a very friendly community when it comes to partners, where we all really lift each other up, right? And
Yeah.
and that's as I started to make connections amongst everybody. I want to be more intentional about that, and make deeper connections with my peers, because there are so many struggles that we all go together, that we all are experiencing. I mean, we talked a little bit about that today, but I think if we just got together more, right, and we just talk them out, and share these stories, that's also another way to get better. Like, someone else has walked in our shoes before, right? Or
Yeah.
someone else can give us the advice of, hey, don't hire that marketing agency that wants to charge you thousands of dollars a month, because they're just taking you to the cleaners, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a complex environment. It's not for the weak, but someone's got to do it, and I like why we do it. I like the fact that we're helping. At the end of the day, if you think about, if you frame it like this, and this is kind of what gets me up in the morning, is that if you can make a mid-market small business company better, that has direct effect on a lot of families, a lot of other businesses, and a lot of communities. And if you're doing that through software, if you look at it through that lens, that's a pretty powerful reach, right? And I think that that's something that sometimes gets forgotten, is we are doing this to make money. We're doing this to be
Yeah.
successful and all of that, but ultimately we're not doctors curing cancer, but we could help communities and could help clients do and fulfill their missions, right? And I think that can be powerful.
And take better decisions. So last week I was speaking to my business consultant, and I told him, "Hey, man, I'm done. It's it's not for weak, as you mentioned." So he told me something I will never forget. He told me, "You are in a fight, and the one who win in this fight, who will be patient and wait for like the most he can wait, because you are taking like this beat after beat after beat, and you still still resisting and patient and wait until the opportunity come. So it's not for weak. I will never forget this word also. It's not for weak, and people
No.
are relying on you, and you have families, as you mentioned, 50 families and your family. So
Yep.
there is something that should motivate you to still standing stronger and be patient. So I really enjoyed this episode, Armando. I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it
Thank
too.
you.
It was fun. It was fun chatting. Like, I don't even, I, at one point I forgot we were even on cameras, but, yeah, it's really cool to be able to talk shop about this stuff. And again, you know, it is difficult. Like, let's not sugarcoat that, you know, software sales in general. That's what there's Instagram accounts making fun of us, right? For a
Yeah.
reason. But I think, you know, it's, if it was easy, everybody would do it, and everybody
Exactly.
would be
Yeah.
successful. And
Yeah.
you know, I think we have, you know, I've definitely admired some of the things that you guys are doing from a marketing
Thank you so
perspective.
much.
I think you guys are doing the right things. You guys are at a different stage in your life cycle that, but you'll get there because you've got a good head on your shoulders, and that's what you need to bet on, is that you're doing the right thing, and it's just going to take time. And I'm always here to help. If you ever need
Yeah.
anything, you know that.
Thank you so much, Armando, for your time today. And thank you for everyone listening to this episode. And stay tuned for more. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of ERP Talks. You can catch all our episodes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We also share episodes on YouTube and post short highlights on LinkedIn, so be sure to follow us on those platforms as well. If you're short on time, don't worry. We've got you covered with our newsletter, where we provide episode summaries straight to your inbox. Sign up and stay up to date with all the insights from our guests. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you in the next episode.